Ladies and gentlemen.
Right over here. Yeah.
Come on over. Ladies and gentlemen, the head coach of your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers, about to grace us with his presence. How are you? See ya. Rick Tocchet's here. I don't know if you know this or not. Your team just made a pretty important pick. So,
well, first of all, did you guys trade Bundy? Where is he?
Well, it's his daughter's wedding today.
I know.
I
knew that. Bundy.
I didn't know if you knew. I didn't know.
Of course he knew that. Of course he knew.
Yes.
So, you guys go into tonight, and I think that a week ago, before the Zegras trade, everybody's thinking center. Zegras trade goes through. All of a sudden, it feels like maybe Porter Martone could be a little bit more on the radar. The pick's already made.
Sure.
The Zegras trade, from your perspective, do you think it kind of did change that calculus a bit? Not that he wouldn't have been considered before, but like maybe it gives you a little bit of flexibility to look at Porter Martone.
Yeah, my role, I've been here about a month, so I've watched a little bit of video of these guys. These scouts and the management, they've been watching these players all year.
Yeah.
So, as a coach, you kind of stay in your lane. They know the type of player I like and how do we want to play. But when Martin went to Nashville, I saw a lot of smiles in that war room. You're talking Martone, played for the Hunter brothers. When you hear of the Kachucks, Corey Perry ilk.
Yeah.
I don't want to put pressure on the kid. I mean, that's the type of kids. Those guys are winners.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to have them in a 7-game series. They don't get pushed out of the game. They can score, and they're not afraid to agitate the other team. So, from what I've been told, even some of the video I've watched, he could be a special player.
Now, this isn't your first rodeo as far as a draft is concerned. Certainly the first one with the Flyers, but what was it like for you to be in that draft room preparing for this? And, a lot of those conversations that are going on between the scouts and management and like debating between players, like what was that? What was your impressions of that?
Yeah. You know what? You're in and out of those meetings, but I love the fact that there's some fighting and yelling in there, and guys are fighting for their guy. That's how you win. It's if everybody's agreeing, patting each other on the back on everything. You're probably not going to win. So I love there's a lot of competitiveness in that room. What I saw, I love people that speak up, and a lot of guys were fighting for this guy. But I think in the end, everybody kind of was in agreement. Let's grab this kid. So, it's a great experience for me. I've had a chance, for me personally, the last 3 days with our coaches meeting. So I had our whole staff for the last 3 days with their development guys. Johnny Leclerc sat in, Patrick Sharp, Nick Schultz, guys like that. We had and also talked about what we want to do system-wise, how we training camp. So we'll have another meeting in August, probably mid-August, same thing, where coaches will present, certain D-zone coverages and stuff like that, and then we'll get that information to the players.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about Trevor, who we just had in here about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I know you had a conversation with him right after the trade happened. So he told us a little bit about that. I get the sense that you're the kind of guy who's like, you know what? I want to give you the freedom to do what you do well, but there's going to be some non-negotiables, right? And I think that's probably the way you coach. What do you, when you look at a guy like Trevor Zegras, you've coached against him for a couple of years. What do you see in that, and how does that play out for you?
Well, you know what? I told him I want to see you smile. He's got a swagger to him.
Yeah,
he reminds me like a little J.R. Ronick. Like the swag. I like that.
Yeah,
I want that. Yeah. But I also need him to do some stuff for winning hockey, and we've talked about that. And this summer's a big summer for him preparation wise. He wants to play center. So, we'll work on that and give him that opportunity. But, center, there's a lot of responsibility. But the one thing that you can't overlook is when he has the puck in the middle of the ice, he can pass forehand, backhand. When you look at a guy like Leon Draisaitl, probably the best of the league at passing both ways. Zegras has that talent where he can make a back pass. And it's hard to do. Make a back pass, send somebody in for an offensive play. So that's one thing that I'm intrigued by. And then power play. He can play the flanks. I'd like to see him move him around a little bit because he can make that second play. You beat pressure, you get him the puck. You even got like Mitchkov. Once you beat pressure, it's attack. That's what we want to do on the power play, and those guys can make those plays.
How hard is it to try to find that balance between allowing him to do what he's best at but then also try to make him a more responsible, I guess, 200-foot player? Like, where do you find that balance?
Well, you look at the best players. Let's face it. Sidney Crosby. He plays the right way. Connor McDavid. Yeah, he scores a lot of points, but if you watch him, he back checks. He wins battles in the corner. McKinnon. All those guys play winning hockey. So I have no problem him making plays, creativity, but you got to be calculated. We're up a goal, 10 minutes left. He's got no speed going through the neutral zone by himself. Probably not the right time to try to stick handle through three guys.
Sure.
Like those are things that, I shouldn't, well, first of all, is that a non-negotiable? Yeah. But I mean, he's going to learn. I mean, and I think he's a smart kid. He's been, is his sixth year? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Fifth year?
Fifth full year.
He wants to win. He wants to win. And, he's got another year left on his contract. Let's face it. This is actually good for us too, because he wants to prove his worth.
I have one.
No problem.
I have one last. But they're telling us we got to roll. So I got one last question for you.
You got two.
We got two more. You said we got two more. All right, we're good. Okay.
Go ahead.
So the one I wanted to ask you about is there's a couple of guys who at the end of last season probably, wish that they could have had some of those games back that I think are going to be curious to watch play with you. And I want you to kind of address what these guys look like for you. And those two guys to me are Owen Tippett and Cam York. And how do you look at those guys and see how you can maybe get a little bit more out of them than maybe what we got at the end of last year?
Yes, for me, let's go with Tippett. Intriguing guy, big guy that can skate. He's got a great shot. I've had a conversation with him. I'm going to spend a lot of time with him. A guy like him, if he can learn a give and go game, he manufactures offense on his own. Now we got to get him more on a team play. Like if he maybe plays with a Michkov or a Zegras, where it's hard to defend a big guy. When it's a give and go game. I don't care if it's basketball or soccer or even hockey. When you have a big guy who moves the puck and then goes to an area, they're tough to defend. So that's the thing I'd like to see him be real good on the boards, winning battles. Like that's something that he can really hone his game on. And then Cam York, I think he's a guy that wants to come and prove a lot of people wrong. I love that. Like another guy, like there's big summers for these guys, right? There's things that he's got to develop. Walking the blue line. Can he make the second play? Being a good defender, use his brain. Smart guy. He was a captain, for the World Junior team, his team. So there's leadership qualities there. He's got a fresh start with us. I got a great defenseman coach in Todd Reardon. If you look at his track record, he guys had Matt Niskanen here, who had, the last 5, 6 summers of his career, probably his best hockey. He was coached by Todd in Washington. So, those type of guys, they're going to get good teaching, and we got a good staff. So those are two guys that we're really going to try to hone their skills.
My last thing was, when you got hired, there was a hole at center. It appears, at least for now, kind of filled there with Zegras. You came to a team that had 3 firsts, 4 seconds.
Sure.
You've now made a pick that many consider to be a more NHL-ready prospect than some of the centers that were available on the board. Still have 2 firsts, 3 seconds still on the board. Is there a little bit of a gut instinct on your part to go, all right, if there's a trade for a guy that can help us right now, go after that? Or do you look at it from a more holistic thing? You just got hired. There's some time here. Do you go, you know what? Play this one out. Where do you land right now?
Great question, because, listen, to win in the league, I mean, you want every facet of the game, goaltending, defense, centerman, and then wingers, right? But you can't push the envelope. There's a plan here. I bought into it, don't I? That's the reason I signed here. I had some other opportunities. I came here because I like the plan. There's some guys on the radar on the free agency they'll look at. But we got a ton of cap space next year. There's going to be a lot of free agents next year and a lot of things that we can do. So you got to buy your time. But I agree with you. Like the center positions. I was lucky in Vancouver when we won the Pacific Division. I had Miller, Pedersen, and Lindholm.
Not bad.
That's not bad, right? You feel comfortable as a coach. But saying that, we got some guys here. Noah Cates has really impressed me watching his video, where he's come from. Couturier, I think he's going to have a really good year this year. He's going to bounce back. He won the Selke, didn't he? A bunch of years ago. Yeah. So there's some stuff there. So we like the plan, and I think you got to buy your time when there's the chance to strike. So maybe it's tonight. I don't know, but there'll be a time when we're going to strike.
Rick, it's great to have a head coach on Snow the Goalie. Well, we thank you for being here. And
don't touch that one.
You don't have to. You don't have to. And well, I'm sure we'll have you back on again at some point down the line.
Anytime, boys. Thanks
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, boys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again.
Take care.
Rick Tocchet, Flyers head coach.